Bismillah Rahman Rahim. We start with the second video on the November 2020 paper 1-1, and this will contain questions 24 to 40 explained and solved. Wishing you all the best. Coming to question number 24, the diagram shows the bones of the human arm. You know this is the humerus, and you know this is the thumb side. So the thumb side, you have the radial artery, you have the radius, and of course this has to be the ulna, so it can't be any other bone but the ulna. So quick revision. This is what we have to understand. To this would be attached the scapula or the shoulder blade. So which is the bone labeled X? Couldn't be anything else but the ulna. Then coming on to question number 25, for which diseases can antibiotics be used as effective treatments? It's only and only bacterial infections. We only give antibiotics, B for bio, B for bacterial infections, and the diseases that you study bacterial infections is syphilis. Malaria is caused by Plasmodium. Coronary heart disease is due to other factors, and viral infections are like AIDS is a viral infection. We do not give antibiotics in that. Then coming on to question number 26, the table shows the characteristics of four microorganisms. Which one could be a virus? Now, contains one or more cells? No. Contains one or more cell nuclei? No. Produces spores? No. So the only answer to this was A. Please remember, virus is not a cell. Virus just has a protein coat, and inside it has either a DNA or an RNA strand. It has no cytoplasm, it has no organelles, it has no mitochondria, it cannot respire. It can only and only live inside another host cell. That is why we study it in biology. And what will it do is that it'll inject its DNA into the host cell, and then it will bully the host cell to make copies of it, and then may bully the host cell into making its protein coat, and then this host cell will be destroyed and these virus particles will be released. So virus is not even living. Please understand that. So it's not a cell, it does not contain a nucleus, and it does not produce spores. It only has DNA and a protein coat. Into question number 27, which statement comparing the production of single cell protein and the production of protein in meat is not correct? Production of protein in meat. So single cell proteins are those microorganisms which we grow in laboratories, but we get proteins. And protein in meat is you have to have animals, and animals require a lot of space. So production of single cell protein requires more space. Yes, that is correct. Single cell protein produced more quickly. But it says which statement compares the production of single cell protein, the production of protein in meat. So you have to see the comparison. Single cell proteins are produced in the lab. In one room, you can have a lot of single cell protein, but if you have to grow chickens or if you have to have cow's meat or sheep's meat, well, they require a lot of space for grazing, for eating grass, and for chickens eating grains. So production of singles requires single cell protein. If we say that comparing it with that of protein in meat is not correct. So not correct, yes. Single cell protein can be grown in a lab, and other proteins can, of course. So it was wrong to say the single protein requires more space. That was actually technically a wrong thing to say, but it says not correct. So you have to say this. You have to say the opposite of it. You have to say to yourself, singles can be produced more quickly. Is that correct? No, it is. It is correct. It was not correct was the answer which was to be given. Then coming on to question number 28, which statement describes relationships in ecosystems? Carbohydrates are passed from decomposed producers, energy passed from carnivore to herbivore, proteins are passed from primary consumer to producer, carbohydrates are passed from producers to herbivores. Now, you know, producers is the beginning of every food chain. And then we have the consumer. So first is the primary consumer. Then you have the secondary consumer, and then you have the tertiary consumer, and then you have, of course, the quaternary consumer. So you know how this is. So it couldn't be the other way around. Relationships in ecosystem. So answer to that was D, which is that carbohydrates are passed from producers to herbivores. Then coming on to the 29th question. Uh, Mealy bugs are small insects that can feed on crops such as mango and coffee. They damage the crops and reduce the yield and profits for farmers. Lacewing insects and ladybird beetles both eat mealy bugs. Which row shows the positions of some of the organisms in this food chain? So coffee, mealybug, and then the lacewing. So first the coffee, then the mealybug, and then the lacewing. And this is how you had to really figure this out from the question. Crops such as mango and coffee. So that was easy. In the producers, we had to have mango and coffee. So mango and coffee was only in B and D. So these were the incorrect ones. Now we have to read this again and see which one was coming after which one. Which is there's and there's ladybird. Yes, there is a ladybird here. Lacewing insects and ladybird eat the mealybug. So the mealybug had to come first, and then the lacewing or the ladybird had to come after that. The diagram shows the carbon cycle. So carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now always when I'm teaching you this, I always say there's only one process which takes away the carbon dioxide, and that is photosynthesis. So this has to be plants. So this is photosynthesis. This can't be anything else. Now plants respire and this is gone back to the atmosphere. So X respiration by animals. Now what is process X? It has to be clear it was respiration. It would be nothing else. Plants respire and the CO2 is returned to the atmosphere, and animals respire and the CO2 is returned to the atmosphere. Fossil fuels to carbon dioxide. This would have of course been combustion. And then dead and decaying animals and plants, of course, to fossil fuel would be fossilization. This dead and decaying decomposers would be again a process of respiration. So we have decomposition. This would be, of course, decomposition, yes. Decomposition, combustion, respiration. You know, there are three things. Photosynthesis only removes it, right? And this should be equal to, we have a red CD player, respiration, combustion, and decomposition. So all these processes in red are actually taking carbon dioxide back to the air, and only photosynthesis is the one which is actually taking away the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And this of course must be balanced out so that we have the carbon dioxide in the air remains the same as time goes by. Then question 31, the three statements about malarial parasites are listed. Number one, insecticides are used to kill the vectors. Number two, netting is used to keep the vectors away from people. Number three, people take drugs that stop the malarial pathogen developing. Which methods can be used to control malaria? So it was all three of these. Why? Because insecticides are used to kill the vectors. We spray Morton in our houses so that we kill the mosquitoes and they don't come and suck blood. And netting is used to keep the, so netting means you sleep in a beds have nets around them, and which prevents the mosquitoes from reaching you. And of course, by taking drugs you stop the spread of malaria, because if I have a few of the plasmodium and I take the drugs, well, all of them are killed and I do not have any more of the plasmodium. So even if the mosquito sucks my blood, it's not going to get any plasmodium. So that was question 31. Now coming on to question 32. What would be an undesirable feature of an insecticide? Insecticide are the ones we spray on crops to kill all the insect. It becomes more concentrated at each stage in the food web, because when these insecticides are washed into rivers and lakes, they increase in every layer of the food web. So undesirable feature. This is one of not the good things. So this is what we had to understand in question 32. Now let's come on to the next question. 33, the diagram shows a section of a flower. A, B, C, D. You know, A is the anther, D is the stigma, B is the filament, and C is inside the ovary. And I know it's pointing towards the ovules. So ovary, then what is not an essential, no, sorry, where are the male gametes made? I was reading the wrong question. Where are the male gametes made? Now, you know, meiosis takes place inside the anthers, and here this is the anthers, and of course, here we have meiosis, and this is here where the male gametes are played. So, this would be this would be A would be the anther, and of course, this B would be the filament, and this is the male part, and together it is called stamen. And as I always tell you to remember men, male part. So this is the stamen, the anther, and the filament. Then coming on to question number 34, what is not an essential condition for the germination of seeds? Germination of seeds require three things: temperature, water, and oxygen. An adequate temperature, water, and oxygen. Please remember it's not air. So we don't need carbon dioxide. All these three are needed for it, and that is the mnemonic for it is TWO, temperature, water, and oxygen. So question 34, the answer was A. Then coming on to question number 35, what is an advantage to a baby of breastfeeding compared with bottle feeding? Only breast milk contains antibodies. So breast milk is the only one which contains antibodies because the mother has had certain diseases and she has antibodies which are passed to the infant, to the baby when they have milk, and these of course is a very beneficial thing. Next, the diagram shows a calendar for 33 days in February and March. Menstruation starts on the fifth day and February, and then it goes on to March. And then it says a girl who has a regular menstrual cycle of 28 days. So 28 plus 5, you have to understand, was 32, would be somewhere. So 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, somewhere here. 28 days would be completed here. So 5th onwards, 5 plus 28 is 29, 33. So it was around about 20, 33rd, so 28. So here would we have, so 28 days. We'd have to see from 5th date how many would be the 28 days. So because we don't have a 30th month, so here, so 5th to the 28th is 23, and then 5 days more, so somewhere here, yes, here, sorry, 5 days. So 28 days. During which dates would the progesterone concentration in her blood rise most rapidly? You see, if you remember menstrual cycle, 14th day is the date of ovulation. So the 14th day would be on the 20th. 5 plus 14 is 19 and the 20th. So day 20th to the 26th, the progesterone levels would be high of February, not of March. So during which date would the progesterone in the blood rise most rapidly? They would remain high, of course. They would remain high. Remember, the graph goes like this, and then it remains high, and then it sort of goes down. So 20th to the 26th would rise most rapidly. Will remain high after that till the 3rd of March. So 36. We've done question number 36. Now coming on to question number 37. Now this is a very good question. It's a very make or break question. In a species of mouse, fur color can be black or white. So we only have two different phenotypes. Two black female mice. So we've got black with black. Two black female mice were allowed to mate with the same black male. So we have the male is also, so black is crossed with black. We have two black female mice were allowed to mate with the same black male. So we have black female, black male. One female had 9 young and another female. So we have two different mice. Okay, so we have two different ones. One female had 9, all of which were black. So this one of these had all 9 and they were all black. The other female had 7 young. 5 black and 2 white. Oh, now. So we have a different sort of a question. So we have two female mating with the same male. Now, what is the one of these white mice was male and is allowed to mate with a heterozygous female. What is the expected ratio of phenotypes of their offspring? Now, we need to understand this question very carefully. What is the expected ratio of phenotypes of their offspring? Now, there were only two white. One of these white was, so this white was mated with, so white is small b, and was mated with a heterozygous. So this had to be big B, small b. So when you cross a white, the recessive one, the white has to be the recessive trait, or it has to be homozygous recessive, it can't be anything else. If it said it was 7 young and 2 white, white is the recessive trait. So the white had to be small b, and then it said crossed with a heterozygous female. So when this is the cross, the ratio is 2:2, or you can say 1:1. So what is the expected ratio of phenotypes of the offspring? There were only two white, so there will be one black and one white, because 2:2. So if 2:2 is 1:1, so one black and one white would be the ratio which would be expected ratio. So please understand this question. I'm going to explain it once again. In a species of mouse, fur color can be black or white. So they've given you this two possibilities, black or white. Now, how do you know which is dominant? Two black female mice were allowed to mate with the same black male. One female had 9 young, and all of which were black. The other female had 7 young, 5 black, and 2 white. So we know white is the recessive trait. And black can be this, or can be this. Now, this is the information you need to decipher from the question. Because if one female had 9 young, all which were black, the other had 7 young, 5 black, 2 white. So this gives you the different combination, what is dominant and what is recessive. Then it says one of these white mice. Then it says one of these white mice. So the white mice is this, was male and was allowed to mate with a heterozygous female. What is the expected ratio of phenotypes of their offsprings? Now, what is the ratio of the phenotypes of their offsprings? Of their offsprings. So you know that this combination is this. So you have two these, and then you have two these. So it is 2:2, which is 1:1. So it says what is the expected ratio of phenotypes? So one black and one white. It is not this one we are talking, not of these two white we are talking about. We are talking of what will be the ratio amongst these offsprings. Even if there are 10, there will be 5 black, 5 white. So 1:1 will be the black and the white ratio. This is what they are expecting you to answer. So ratio of the phenotype of their offsprings. So 1:1, or one black, one white, or you could have said just 1:1. If even that would be correct if that would have been asked in the question. This is a very important way how we handle the genetics question. Now let's look at them, and then I'm going to explain this to you maybe twice so that you can do it. I might not be able to explain it to you in the first time. The diagram shows the blood groups phenotypes of some members of a family. Which member of the F1 generation must be heterozygous with the codominant allele? Now you got to understand is, first of all, let's write down the alleles. I blood group O. Blood group O means this person is IO. This person is blood group IO. Now this person is B group. we don't know that. A, we don't know. O, we are sure it's IOIO. So that means C and D have to have IO in them somehow, because that is how their children have IO, and they also have blood group A. So one child has to have IA. One of these, if the child has blood group A, so somehow it has to have IAIO here, right? And this could be IOIO. Now we've got blood group A and blood group B here. So it means that one of the parent has A and one of the parent has B. That is why we have IB here, and one of the child is has got blood group A. So one parent has A and one parent has B, because the other can be O. So it says which member of the F1 generation must be codominant with the heterozygous. Now, what we have to understand is that this person cannot be IA. And I said, as one of the parent has to have A and one of the parent has to have B. So I said, okay, this parent has A, but this parent cannot have A. Why can this parent not have A? There's a reason why this cannot be A, because the parents both are O group. So that is not possible. So this person A has to be IOIO. But how are their children both? They have got one kid A and one kid B. So then comes, of course, that this person has to be IAIB. That was the clue that you had to figure out. That was the clue that you had to figure out. And then, of course, you had to realize is that if there is a parent with, if there is a child with blood group O, then the IO has to come from this parent and the IO has to come from this parent. So that means that how can these parents have codominant allele? Of course, this parent is also is not codominant. It's just got the heterozygous. This parent would be heterozygous, but codominant means has to have AB, must be heterozygous with the codominant. So the person must be having blood group AB. Now this was again one of those very difficult questions which the very best of students would have only been able to figure out. Difficult question, you have to figure it out. I will just repeat myself again after I've finished this paper. So after I've done the question 40, I'm going to come back to this question. Then going on to question number 39, the diagram shows the distribution of human characteristics X in the population. What is the characteristic X? You know, number of individuals showing this sort of a graph is height. Eye color is, this is now they're checking whether you know what is continuous and discontinuous variation. And eye color is discontinuous, blood group is again discontinuous, and sex is also a discontinuous variation. So you don't see this sort of a graph, which is only for continuous variation, which is height. Coming to the last question, which is question number 40. Which statements about the use of bacteria to produce human insulin are correct? Enzymes are used to cut out the human insulin gene. The human insulin gene is transferred to bacterial DNA. The bacterial is transferred into human cells. Doesn't make sense. Which statements about the use is correct? Please always underline correct or not correct. And you know the answer to that was B. Why? Because 1 is correct and 2 is correct and the 3 is not correct. So that finishes this, but we go back to question on the genetics to do that once again. Question 38. The diagram shows the blood group phenotypes of some members of the family. ठीक है? Which member of the F1 generation must be heterozygous with the codominant alleles? So basically we just have to find out which person is IAIB. Now That was not very difficult if you know that parents with blood group O and this parent with blood group O, so person A has to be IO, right? But then A and B, parent A and B have two children, blood group B and blood group A. So that means, how was this child B? So that means the B has come from this parent, but then this child is group A. So this A has also come from this parent because this parent is IO. So we have only this possibility that this parent is IAIB. Okay. But why are answers C and D incorrect? This is what I want you to understand. So blood group O means the child blood group O parents are C and D. So there is IO has come from C and one IO has come from D. But then they have a blood group A as well. So one of the parents has to give them blood group A, IA. And so this parent is probably IO because they have this O group is IO and this blood group A is IAIO. So you see, out of A, B, C, and D, only B is the possibility who has the blood group with the codominant allele. This is how you do this question. You must always look at what is the information given to you and then see how the children could possibly inherit that from their parent. So please be very clear. This was a very difficult question and you need to be absolutely clear on this to be able to do this in the exam. They will give you something which is very similar to this to differentiate between the top grades, the A star, the A, and the B, because these questions can only be done by a very few students who are really good in understanding the genetics chapter. That completes this paper, and thank you very much. And inshallah, we should continue with more MCQs as we go ahead. And thank you once again.